Imagine a world where no human voice had ever spoken a single word, where silence ruled the earth. Our ancestors walked beneath the same stars we see tonight, but they could not name a single one. Not just a world without language, but a world without the ability to share a thought or dream. What if the greatest leap in human history was not fire or tools, but the moment we learned to speak? Somewhere in the depths of time, perhaps 200,000 years ago, something extraordinary began to stir. The human brain was evolving, growing larger and more complex with each passing generation across millennia. But size alone was not enough to unlock the mystery that would separate us from every other creature. Deep within the skull, new neural pathways were forming, like rivers carving through stone, slow and inevitable. The larynx was descending lower in the throat, a dangerous evolutionary gamble that made choking more likely. Yet this anatomical change would give us something no other primate possessed: the power of complex sound. Can you imagine the first attempts at speech? Clumsy and halting, like a child learning to walk. These early humans lived in small bands, hunting across the African savanna under skies vast and indifferent. They already had gestures, facial expressions, and simple calls like the warning cries of other primates before them. But something was missing, something that would allow them to share not just danger, but also ideas and stories. The brain's Broca's area and Wernicke's area were slowly specializing, dedicating themselves to language and meaning. This was evolution's most patient experiment, unfolding across hundreds of thousands of years without witnesses or records. Then came the first breakthrough, perhaps a mother trying to comfort her child with sounds more varied than before, or a hunter attempting to describe the location of prey with combinations of sounds that carried specific meanings. Each generation built upon the innovations of the last, adding new sounds and new patterns to their vocal repertoire. Language was not invented in a single moment of genius, but emerged like a river from countless tiny springs. The sounds they made were simple at first, single syllables attached to objects and actions in their world. Stone became a sound. Fire became a sound. Water became a sound that everyone in the group could understand. But the true revolution came when they learned to combine these sounds into sequences that created new meanings. This was the birth of syntax, the grammar that would allow infinite thoughts to be expressed with finite sounds. With each new generation, the vocabulary grew richer and the structures more sophisticated, building complexity upon complexity. They could now speak of things not present, of yesterday's hunt and tomorrow's plans, of dangers yet unseen. This ability to reference the past and future was a power no other animal had ever possessed on Earth. Language became a tool, cooperation, allowing groups to plan complex hunts and share knowledge across the generations. An elder could describe a water source 3 valleys away, and the young could find it without ever seeing it. Stories began to emerge, narratives that bound the group together and passed down wisdom from the ancestors long gone. These were not just tales for entertainment, but survival manuals encoded in memory and carried in the voice. Have you ever wondered how much knowledge was lost before we learned to preserve it in words and song? The human voice became a bridge across time, carrying the experience of the dead to guide the living forward. But language brought more than practical benefits. It brought something profound and deeply human into the world. For the first time, a creature on Earth could express abstract concepts like justice, beauty, and the sacred. They could ask questions about their own existence, wonder about the stars, and imagine worlds that did not yet exist. Language made us philosophers before we ever built cities, theologians before we ever raised temples to the sky. The campfire became a classroom where children learned not just words, but the accumulated wisdom of their people. Each language that emerged was a unique solution to the problem of meaning, shaped by landscape and culture. In the forests, languages developed rich vocabularies for plants and animals that sustained life in the green shadow. On the plains, languages evolved to describe vast distances and the subtle movements of herds across the horizon. By the coast, languages captured the moods of the sea and the patterns of tides in sounds as rhythmic as waves. Every language was a lens through which its speakers saw and understood the world around them in distinct ways. But all languages shared something fundamental, a common architecture that revealed our shared human heritage and origin. Linguists call this universal grammar, the deep structure that all human languages seem to follow, despite their surface differences. This suggests that language is not just learned, but also innate, written into our genes by evolution's patient hand. The FOXP2 gene, discovered in recent decades, plays a crucial role in our ability to produce and process speech. Mutations in this gene can impair language, revealing how deeply speech is woven into our biology and brain. Neanderthals possessed a version of this gene too, suggesting they may have had language of their own before they vanished. What if we could hear a Neanderthal speak, their words carried across 50,000 years on the wind of time? We will never know their songs or stories, for they left no written record, only bones and stone tools. But the discovery of their FOXP2 gene tells us they were not the silent brutes we once imagined them to be. They may have had names for the stars, myths about the moon, and legends passed down through generations now lost. The extinction of the Neanderthals was also the death of languages we will never hear, thoughts we cannot imagine. This is the tragedy of deep time. Entire worlds of meaning vanish forever, leaving only silence in their wake. Meanwhile, Homo sapiens continued to spread across the globe, carrying language to every continent and every climate on Earth. With each migration, languages diversified, splitting and evolving like species adapting to new environments and challenges over time. By 40,000 years ago, humans were creating cave art, visual language that complemented the spoken word with images. The paintings at Lascaux and Chauvet are not just art, but also messages, stories told in ochre and charcoal. These ancient artists were speaking to us across the millennia, saying, "We were here. We saw beauty. We mattered." Language and art together made us storytellers, the only species on Earth that could create meaning from mere sound and symbol. Not just communication, but the birth of culture itself, the transmission of ideas that could outlive any individual life. The invention of writing, much later, was simply language made visible, frozen in time like insects trapped in amber. But for hundreds of thousands of years, language existed only in the fleeting moment of speech, carried on breath and air. Every word spoken was lost immediately, unless someone remembered it, making memory the first library of human knowledge. Elders became living books, repositories of wisdom that would die with them unless passed on to the next generation. This is why oral cultures developed such sophisticated mnemonic techniques, embedding knowledge in rhythm, rhyme, and repetition for survival. The Iliad and the Odyssey were oral poems long before they were written, memorized and performed by bards across generations. These epic tales were not just entertainment, but also cultural memory, the history and values of a people preserved in verse. Language allowed us to become a species that lives not just in the present, but in the past and future simultaneously. We are the only creatures who can learn from ancestors we never met and plan for descendants we will never see. This temporal reach, this ability to transcend our own brief moment, is perhaps language's greatest gift to humanity and consciousness. Today, approximately 7,000 languages are spoken on Earth, each one a unique way of being human in the world. But languages are dying at an alarming rate, vanishing as their last speakers pass away without successors to carry them forward. Every 2 weeks, a language dies, taking with it a unique perspective on existence that can never be recovered or recreated. This is an extinction event happening in real time, a loss of diversity as profound as the vanishing of species. When a language dies, we lose not just words, but entire systems of knowledge about plants, weather, and the land. We lose stories, songs, and ways of thinking that have evolved over thousands of years in specific places and cultures. The death of a language is the death of a world, a way of seeing and being that disappears forever into silence. Yet new languages continue to emerge, creoles and pidgins born from the mixing of cultures in our globalized world today. Language is still evolving, still adapting to new technologies and new ways of human connection across vast distances and barriers. We now speak to each other across oceans in real time, a conversation our ancestors could never have imagined or dreamed possible. The internet has created new forms of language, abbreviations and emojis that convey meaning in ways both ancient and novel. But beneath all this change, the fundamental human need to communicate, to share our inner world, remains constant and eternal. We are still the same species that learned to speak in the African savanna 200,000 years ago under ancient stars. Our brains are wired for language in the same way, our throats shaped by the same evolutionary pressures and adaptations over time. When you speak, you are using an instrument refined over millennia, a biological miracle that sets us apart from all other life. Every conversation is an echo of that first moment when our ancestors learned to turn breath into meaning and sound into thought. Language made us human, but humanity continues to remake language with every generation that speaks and every child that learns. Think about the first word you ever spoke, the moment you joined the great conversation that has been happening for millennia. That word connected you to every human who has ever lived, a chain of meaning stretching back to the very beginning. We are all inheritors of this gift, this ability to share what we think and feel with others through mere vibrations in air. Language is our species' superpower, more transformative than any technology we have invented since we learned to speak and think together. It allowed us to build civilizations, create art, develop science, and ask the deepest questions about our existence and purpose in the cosmos. Without language, we would still be isolated minds, unable to share the contents of our consciousness with another living soul on Earth. But with language, we became a collective intelligence, pooling our knowledge and creativity across generations and continents to build the world we know. The birth of language was the birth of humanity as we know it, the moment we became truly human in every sense. And yet, for all our words, some experiences remain beyond language, felt but never fully expressed or captured in mere sound. Perhaps this is language's final lesson, that even our greatest tool for communication has limits, and some truths live only in silence. But still we speak, still we try to bridge the gap between minds, because language is hope made audible across time and space.